Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Hey, I just want to tell you, I loved your vlog the other day. I just got enthralled. I wanted a biscuit afterwards, though.
How funny were our moms, though, especially Josh's mom.
Yeah, I wanted to eat one of Josh's mom's biscuits is what I wanted.
They were very good. But Linda, I knew that you would laugh because did you hear the part where Tyler's like, Joanne, what breakfast did you make for Josh? And she's like, biscuits and gravy and scrambled eggs and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Linda, what'd you make for Dana? And my mom was like, well, she had Lucky Charms.
Yeah, hence might be why our eating habits are what they are.
I was like, that's exactly why I eat like crap. But anyway, I know you are super excited about our guest today. So I can't wait to hear her story too.
I am. Katie, tell me how you say your last name. I don't even know.
Klezitz.
Klezitz?
Yeah. I respond to just about anything though, because it's like some people are like Klezitz, but it's Klezitz.
I can remember it close to closets. That'll help me.
Klezitz.
Closet. I can remember that. You went from such an easy name to a hard one. So
right.
I loved your story. You and I've got to know each other over the last week, and just really could just probably talk forever. But you were born, and then what happened? So tell our audience who you are.
So I was born in Arizona, and I kind of grew up in a real estate family. So my dad, Scott, and my mom started, I think they had one of the first Keller Williams franchises or second in Arizona. And that was his brokerage. He had like a little boutique brokerage ahead of time and then folded it into KW. So I mean, I've been around Keller Williams since I think 98 or 99. It's I tell everyone I grew up as like a KW baby. Mm-hmm. My first job was working at a KW office when I was 12, answering phones and putting away mail. I just always had like an affinity, I guess, to the real estate world. I was fascinated by it, and I loved going to open houses when I was little. I loved going to the office with my dad, and I just liked being in that environment. Fast forward, I went to high school, and after high school, I really wanted to get my real estate license, but I didn't do it because my parents were like, you have to go to college. And I was like, all right, fine. So I'll go to college. And went to college, had probably way too much fun in college. And so it took me a little while to get my real estate license after that. But I knew, and I went and got some other jobs. Like I tried to be like, you know what, never mind. I'm going to go do this on my own. I'm going to forge my own path. And all these 9-to-5, like W-2 jobs just did not resonate with me. After I'd be really good, for 6 months, and I'm like, oh, I'm bored. Like I wanted to be in control of my own time. And it's stuff I'd always learned, but I just still fought against it, if that makes any sense. And so finally, I think I was 25 or 26, and I went and finally got my real estate license. And I loved it. I loved it right away. But I always had this draw towards like investors. Like I didn't really I hated working with traditional buyers per se, where it was like very emotional and it wasn't just numbers wise. I just felt like I always didn't have the bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
Cause I was like, this makes so much financial sense. You should buy it. Like I just didn't. So I got really lucky. And in about between 2010, 2012, I had a couple investors from out of state that were buying like fix and flips with me in Arizona. So I had like a couple clients that I worked with, very numbers based, and I really, really enjoyed it. Well, after that, or during that process, I met my husband, and my husband, Frank, had just moved to California, and I lived in Arizona at the time, and we started dating, and he's like, you need to come to California. I'm not moving to Arizona. I was like, oh, all right. So I'm commuting back and forth, and we end up, getting married, having a baby, and I just couldn't do the real estate stuff anymore. And I let my license go. And then after like 4 or 5 years, I finally was like, and we had another baby, I'm like sitting here, I'm like, my brain is going to mush. Like I need to go back to work. Like I want to do something. And I went and got my license in California because those commissions, you know, those $30,000, $40,000 commissions look really, really, really lucrative. But then I started thinking about like what I wanted my life to look like. And I'm like, I don't want to be driving around with buyers on Saturdays and Sundays. I don't want my phone to be constantly be ringing. And Frank and I started talking. At this time, we owned 15 rental properties, and we had this like meeting of minds in Arizona with one of our friends, Jeff Cohn, who's actually an agent now with KW, and he's from Omaha, one of Frank's friends from college. And he's like, oh yeah, like, have you heard of this BRRRR method? I bought 100 houses last year. We're like, wait, what? How'd you buy 100 houses last year? And he like broke it down so simply for us. And I was like, and Frank's like, we should do that. I'm like, we should do that. I'm like, I should go back to full-time work, but like build our own wealth, not someone else's. If that makes it easy, you know, like it was like, we looked at each other like, how did we not think of this before? This makes so much sense to us. And so that was about 2 years ago. And we basically took the BRRRR method and created our own little process. And we went from 15 rentals to, I think we're at like 56 right now. So at about a little under 2 years, and during 9 months of COVID, where we like basically stopped and didn't do anything because our banking relationships and everything kind of slowed down. So that's kind of where we're at now. And now I have this little investment business, and I'm building our own family wealth instead of someone else's. And it's kind of nice.
People that don't know, explain what the BRRRR method is.
So it's buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So you buy a house below market value for cash. And we buy about 30% below market value. So after renovation value. So for example, if there's a house that's going to be worth $100,000, all fixed up, we give the owner an offer of $70,000. And then we minus repairs off of that. So say it needs new floors, so take $7,000 off, and then our offer would be $63,000. And I had a huge limiting belief that people wouldn't take that. I was like, oh my God, you know, like I come from a real estate world where, you know, like a real estate agent world where you have this fiduciary responsibility, and I'm dealing with all these sellers that are like super emotional and more high end. I was dealing at a higher price point. But when you get in this lower price point, you'd be surprised. And maybe sometimes even in the higher price point, I actually just got one under contract for $530,000, which is, you know, like $100,000 less than it was worth based on the pure convenience of it. So we find people that just need to either get out of their house. They have medical issues. They're getting a divorce. With COVID, they don't want people in and out of their house, and they'll take a lower offer based on the convenience of it. And also if they actually sold their house on the market with an agent with doing no repairs, we're typically within about 10 or 15%, you know, like of what they would actually net. And we run through the numbers with them and kind of explain it. And we consider ourselves kind of consultants. Like I don't go in there like a big strong arm investor where I'm like, you have to sell me your house. I'm like, hey, we're just one of your options, and here are your other options. And hopefully you choose us. If you don't, no harm, no hard feelings, let's move on. Yeah. So we do that. Then we go in, we renovate the houses. We then put tenants, long-term tenants. We don't, at this point, we're not doing short-term vacation rentals. We do long-term tenants. Most of our rents are between, I would say our average rent's about $12.95. And we buy like in Omaha and Texas, kind of like the Midwest. And that's been really, really good for us.
Yeah. And I think I remember correctly, you own 56, but 30 something you and Frank own together yourselves. And then you have houses that you've gone out and bought for other people who want to build wealth, but they don't have the time to do it. And you own just a small percentage of that, right?
Yeah. So Frank and I personally own 100% of 56 houses.
Oh, okay.
And then we partnered with some big agents down in Texas that they're like, hey, we have all this money, but we don't know what to do with it. Can we take what you guys are doing in Omaha and apply it in Texas to help us build our wealth? And they're friends of ours. And I was like, sure, we can do that. So Frank and I own 20% of those, and we don't get paid on any of that right now because our goal is not money now, it's retirement and cash flow later. So we own 20%, and I think we own 34 houses with them right now, somewhere around there, because I don't know what's closed or not recently. Yeah. And then we have another partner that owns another 6 in another town in Texas. So we kind of, and the cool thing about that model for us is we cost share all of the infrastructure. So we share my transaction coordinator, we share my construction manager, we share our ISAs that answer the phones, and then everyone gets to share in Frank's knowledge in his head on how to actually generate these leads and provide more appointments for our people on the ground in both Texas and Omaha.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are probably thinking right now, gosh, how in the world are you buying houses at a decent price in a market where they can get multiple offers? So kind of talk a little bit about, I mean, you're not even lead generating your own area. You're having to lead generate in areas where you're not even located, right?
Yeah. So, you know, I would say a year ago, it was a lot easier to get deals. Now the deals that we're getting just need a lot more work. So I'm just having to invest a little bit more money, and my contractor, you know, and my contractor's loving it because he's making a crap ton of money. So it's still houses that would, a lot of these houses would definitely not, I have never bought a house that could get approved for an FHA loan, you know, like, so that limits people's buyer pool. Conventional, there's a lot of these houses probably could get approved for conventional, but then they're going to have to go in and put $20,000, $30,000 of work into it, which a lot of people just are afraid of doing. And we've just been able to, we've been really fortunate. I have really good contractors. We have really good oversight. I have someone on the ground that is our employee in both or in all the markets that basically goes out and takes video 3 times a week of our construction projects. So I know what's going on. I'm well aware, like we monitor like when the money goes out and when people get paid. And I made a giant mistake when we first started and lost a lot of money. And so because of that, we've had to put more checks and balances and systems into place to protect our assets while doing this from far away.
That was actually one of,
go ahead, Dana.
I was going to say, that was actually one of my questions, Katie. So I actually have talked to Jeff about this before.
Yeah.
He came to Charleston not long ago when we were here, and we had a day together, and he was talking about it. And I have a good friend in Charleston who does this and went from like no units to 200 units in less than 3 years.
Yeah.
Now he does a lot of wholesaling though. So that, and in the beginning he made tons of mistakes. And so that was actually one of my questions, or would you be willing to share for listeners to hear maybe what some of the mistakes that you've made or what to look out for that you would never do again?
You know, I was talking to Linda about this, and I'm just one of those people that I inherently believe people say they're going to do what they say. And I just believe I get into business with like the right people. You know, like, I'm just kind of like, hey, like, it's weird for me not to like do what you say you're going to do or like uphold your commitments. And I really want to believe people, but now I've just learned, like, it doesn't even matter. Like, I can still believe you, but guess what? I'm going to cover my butt with legal documents. Now, I had a partner where we were going in to buy 62 houses together, and we were going to go buy this big package. And this was kind of at the beginning of the beginning of this. And I didn't have the financial wherewithal or the banking relationships to do it on my own. I needed someone to, you know, come to close with cash. And I think it was like, we had this deal like 3.2 or 3. I don't know. We negotiated it down, but in order for me to negotiate it down, I had to release my earnest money, which was $100,000. So I was the one that had put the $100,000 down, and I released the earnest money just because, like, my partners, I'd been in business with them before, and I'd lent them money, or they'd lent me money on some of my purchases. And they're like, oh yeah, it's good. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. We're in the process of getting the legal paperwork done. And I'm like, okay. But there was a time crunch. So because there was this time crunch, I let it slide. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, we'll get the documents done. And then at the final hour, my documents got sent over to my banker, and my banker's like, we're not going to fund this based on this clause. And the clause was basically where they were going to charge me back interest if we didn't pay them back all the money within 2 years, even though they were 40% partners in the deal, equity partners. It was a sweetheart deal for them, you know, and they didn't, so that we couldn't get rid of that clause, and we went to close and didn't close, and I lost $100,000.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, $100,000 is a lot of money, like, but then it was even like, that was all of my money, like, where it was like, it was on a line of credit, you know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just do?
Yeah.
It was right before COVID, and, you know, like, I feel like everything happens for a reason. I've learned from that mistake, and maybe, you know, maybe I'll get another opportunity like that eventually. And now I can do it kind of on my own or with people that I have a more solid relationship with, but I would just make sure I have like the legal documents. And then another one is contractors. You really have to double check and triple check your contractors. A lot of contractors are artists and they're creative and they're very good at like their job of being a contractor. They're not great at managing the money or the business of contracting. Yeah. And so as much as they have the best of intentions, you have to have double and triple checks on contractors because they don't do it on purpose. Like I've had two contractors where they've gotten a little in over their head, and I'm paying them on one job and I can tell they're kind of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And so that's a big thing, is really managing your contractors and keeping control of the money. And if not, like, I mean, hiring your own subs, like, don't just hire a general contractor. Like, I would hire your own subs, or have a project manager that hires your own subs, and having way more control. And yes, you're going to pay a little bit more for that in a sense, because you probably want to put someone on staff or salary that watches all your projects. But if you have 3 or 4 projects going on, it's worth it, you know, to have someone managing that, going out there every other day, taking videos, checking on the subcontractors, being very clear about what it is you expect, and then doling out money, not in big chunks.
Yeah.
And pay for materials directly if you can. I mean, sometimes like electricians, you can't pay for the wiring and all that stuff directly, but when you can pay for stuff direct, pay for it direct. So those are kind of, I guess, those are the 2 biggest mistakes. Everything else, like, yeah, maybe values were off a little bit, but
right.
In real estate, time solves all problems. If you can hold on, you know, a little bit, and it works out.
Yeah. What I love about that is most people would have taken that kind of hit and they would have quit and said,
this would have gotten out. Yeah.
Instead, you got $100,000 lesson that you won't repeat.
Yeah, I thought about it. And honestly, my husband's like, we should just quit. You should quit. No more. I can't handle it. Like, and I don't blame him, you know, like he's super risk adverse. And I mean, I'm so grateful for him. Like, he was the one. I'm like over here living in California, you know, and I'm like, we need to buy a house, our own personal home. We need to buy our own personal home. He's like, for us to save up $300,000 to buy like our own personal home out here, I'd rather buy 6, 7, 9, 10 rentals. And I'm so glad he did that when we first got married and started dating. Because of that and his being risk adverse, it gave us the foundation for me to go leverage that and then really blow up like after those first 15. And we had a track record. So we had tax returns for 10 years. We had a track record of being good landlords and collecting rents, making good financial decisions, having some banking relationships because of that. And I'm really, really grateful that we did that. So but yeah, Frank wanted to quit.
Okay. So I have two quick questions. So first one is and you kind of touched on this, but how are you getting the leads on the houses? We've mailed a lot of postcards, stuff like that. What's your biggest lead source? So
we write very personal letters, very, very personal letters. Like, hey, we're real people, you know, here's our family. And we try to really draw a connection to the area. Like, for example, in Omaha, Frank went to prep, you know, the preparatory academy out there, and he writes in there, that's where he went. He writes in there, hey, I was an Eagle Scout. You know, and I went to this elementary school. And then, and Katie and he tells about how Katie and I met at a real estate conference in Dallas, and now we're living in California, and here's our 2 kids. And we make it just really, really personal. And it's like, hey, if you're thinking about selling, please give us a call, you know, and we'll give you a cash offer, a quick offer, you know, close on your timeline. It's all the same stuff, but it comes off very different than a lot of these postcards.
You mail them bulk to like all I think to specific properties.
We mail in bulk. So we basically find a list. Yep. I think our price point is like $175 and under in Omaha, and they've lived in it for at least 10 years. And that literally is it. And so I think that list is like 30,000. And so what we'll do is we'll create a mailer that like staggers it. So it'll send out like 7,500, like every 10 days or something. Yep. so that our team doesn't get completely inundated, overwhelmed. We did try to go more niche and try to pick zip codes and neighborhoods, and that was so time consuming. And we found it was a lot easier for us just to go mass. And then if you just hit them enough. So we circle through our farm about 4 times a year. We farm those same 30,000 in Omaha and same in Waco. And eventually, like, it's like they keep seeing our stuff. And then we also retarget them with Facebook ads. So we have Facebook ads, and the Facebook leads aren't as, don't fit into our model as well. I'll be honest, most of the Facebook leads I end up wholesaling because they're more expensive houses. But the direct mail, we do pretty well with the direct mail, and people see us, you know what I mean? Like, and they'll be like, oh, I got your letter 6 months ago. And then I got another one and now I'm calling, you know? So it kind of, we have a very good presence, I guess you can say, in Omaha, because we've been doing it we've been there for 2 years. I'll be honest, that first couple months, I was like, oh my God, are we gonna, like, we're spending all this money? It took some time to gain some traction. Yeah.
Adam and I actually just started with a program that our friend in Charleston does. And it's like just the list and all of that was right around, I think, like 16,000. That's not including mailers or anything. Like, you know, that's just, and then you put on top of that your postage and then everything. And then it's kind of a waiting game for several months.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you get a couple good ones and you're paid right back.
Yeah. And we have our leads. So, like, they'll call in, we put our leads in, and I have my team. We have a team in the Philippines that are freaking awesome. And, like, so if anyone calls in, it goes into a lead, and they try those leads. Like, if they don't answer, they try them 10 times at least, you know, in the first 2 days. And then after that, they set follow-up dates and they try back, you know, in a couple weeks. And then once they've talked to someone, and they're interested, they pound them for appointments. Like, I think that's that's a really big piece of what we do. Is Frank at first had the freaking mailers and numbers forwarded to my cell phone. I was like, are you crazy? Like, I was like, this is not working. So it was like Russian roulette answering my phone. I'm like, is this a good one? Or are they going to scream at me and call me a horrible person? You know, like, so it's actually, Frank gets a kick out of the crazy voicemails. And I'm like, I don't want to listen to them. Like, it stresses me out because there's people that call you and, like, scream at you like you're a crazy person. We have one lady that calls us every night at like 3:00 in the morning, and she blocks her number and, like, talks in weird voices. Like, some people are just insane. But sorry, I digress with that. But we've had people call in and, like, we don't convert those or actually get an appointment for a year. Like, or we'll go on an appointment. I can't tell you how many appointments we went on, and they were so insulted by our offer. And then 6 months later, we get a phone call and they're like, hey, so
come back.
And it's like, could you think you can, like, match your offer? And there was times where the answer was no, because comps had changed, especially during COVID, and they still we still got the deal done, which is crazy.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. You kind of answered my other question, which was, do you ever wholesale any of the ones that don't make sense? And you said,
I do, but I'll be honest, like, I'm not a traditional wholesaler in a sense where I don't send it to the masses. I have some really key relationships with some really good friends of mine. And I'm like, you guys, I'm stuck right now. I can't make, you know, like, I used up all my lines of credit. Do you want this one? This is something I got under contract with the intention of buying it.
Yeah.
Or it's like, hey, I have some people in Omaha that I know really love flips. I don't like flips. When I am not there, the attention to detail you need on flips just cannot be done with my crews that are turning and burning fast. You know, like, I can't get the money I need out of a flip. Like, if I'm going to do a flip, I need to be there. I need to be designing it. I need to be I just can't, like, control over that. So if I come across something that's a really good flip, I typically will wholesale it to one of my friends on the ground in Omaha, where I know they're going to do a good job and they have buyers for it already and things like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's hard to do flips if you can't control it.
Exactly. But the rentals, like, if they paint over a light switch, it's not going to kill us.
Yeah.
You know, like.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Katie, what would be the last bit of advice as we wrap up here for anybody in the real estate business that hasn't begun to build wealth or has been thinking about it? What would be one bit of advice you'd give someone that's out there listening?
Just start now. Buy one. Like, you don't have to do what I'm doing. Like, it doesn't have to be crazy. Just buy one. And I don't think a lot of people even understand that you can have up to 10 loans, conventional loans backed by Fannie and Freddie. Yeah. If your income supports it, you're going to have to put 20% down. I'm buying these houses basically without any money down because of the BRRRR method. But my first 10, we bought with 20% down. Like, we started that way. Like, just start. Like, you will be so grateful in 5-10 years even if you have 5, and then in 5 and 10 years you can take those 5 and leverage the equity you have in those to really blow up and like grow more. But just buy one, just start now. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, get it, have it be your first home, and then, you know, move after 2 years, buy another one and move into another one, you know, move into a next one, like, and keep that one as a rental. It's just start now. Like, so many people just keep thinking they have so much time, and they're like, oh, I'm only 35. Oh, I'm only 40. Oh, I'm 50. You know, I have time. But you like, so just, I don't know, everyone's just always waiting. Would you agree with that, Linda? Like, everyone's just waiting, and I'm always like, just do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably one of the biggest we've done podcasts on that before, where people waited too long and now they're like, oh, I don't feel like I can do it because
too late.
Yeah.
You get a lot of that. Awesome.
Yeah. Like, avoid that. I mean, it's an extra $1,000 a month or something. Like, maybe, you know, like, save up $1,000 a month, like, you know, go out to eat less. Like, I don't know, do what you got to do. Like, cut back. It's for your future, and not just your future, but your family's future, your like generations. Like, real estate provides generational wealth. And part of what motivates me is I want to have these properties. First of all, all my properties are going to be paid off in 10 or 15 years. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be my goal is to collect over $1 million a year in rent. And we'll probably walk away. I mean, we're probably going to surpass that with the rate we're going. But my goal is to just have these, I'll hire someone to handle all of it after I'm done acquiring, and be able to sit back and enjoy my family, you know, and just be able to provide for like, if my kid, Frank and I talk about it all the time. It's like, if my kid wants to be a musician, like, we're going to be in a position where I can be like, all right, I can pay for your house. I can buy a house, like a rental for you. You can live there, and I'll give you just enough not to, you know, just enough to survive. So they can do what they love. And I feel like, and then I get to do what I love. Like, real estate just provides so many opportunities and so much freedom. I just couldn't imagine doing anything else.
So true, Katie. And so many
That's awesome.
need to hear this message. So thank you so much. And remember, if you have an opportunity, a challenge, or a question that you'd like to come on the podcast and have Dana and I help you with, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And if you haven't, hit the subscribe button, please do. And the greatest compliment you can give us is to pass this podcast along to someone that you think would benefit from our conversations. So, Katie, I want to say thank you. And I can't believe you're only in your mid-30s and you already got this far ahead. I hope a lot of people your age get the bug after listening to you. And we appreciate all your wisdom. And
if I can do it, anyone can do it, man.
Absolutely. Love it.
Awesome.
I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Katie. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Katie.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.